Well, good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday of Holy Week, and we're so thankful that that we have the opportunity to spend some time together and look at the significance of these events as we travel towards the cross and towards Easter Sunday morning. And so, Wednesday in the life and time of Jesus is April the 1st, AD 33. And you can find these events on Wednesday of Holy Week in Luke 21 and the beginning of Luke 22, Matthew 26, and Mark 14. So as Jesus is teaching his disciples, going about his business, another story is taking place inside the walls of the city of Jerusalem. And what's happening here on Wednesday is that the members of the Sanhedrin, the Jewish religious body, are having their own internal discussion about how to get rid of Jesus once and for all. And you have to remember that these are not two-dimensional stick figures. They're not like flannel board characters. These are real flesh and blood people, and they are about to do something very wicked and extremely heinous. That this situation that begins to unfold on Wednesday of Holy Week is a very serious situation. As Holy Week continues on, the religious leaders will come even more to the forefront as time passes, and we have to ask some questions. What are their motivations, and what are they trying to accomplish? What is their end goal? What is their end game? Well, so let's ask this question. Who are they? It seems that many of Jesus' opponents were in the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin is the ruling council of the Jews. 71 members made up the Sanhedrin. And in fact, the number 70 probably began with Moses, when Moses appointed 70 sub-elders, if you will, to organize a government for the Israelites as they wandered through the wilderness. Okay? So that number 70 stuck, it seems. And their council was made up of Pharisees and Sadducees. Those are the two most important groups in the day. And so you had 70 people all together. And then you had an additional person. That's why we have 71. You have an additional person, and that would be the high priest himself. So 70 members of the Sanhedrin, and then you add on top of that the high priest. In this day, it was Joseph Caiaphas, okay? Or as we know him as Caiaphas. And so often, they would meet once a month in Jerusalem, plus on holy days. And what they would do is they would have discussions, they would have debates, and then they would actually vote on matters. And so whenever that voting took place, they let the youngest member of the Sanhedrin vote first. Why? That way, he would not feel pressured to change his vote or have his vote influenced by the more senior members of the Sanhedrin. And the final vote, after it was all said and done, the final vote would be cast by the high priest. And so during Holy Week, the Sanhedrin meets to figure out what to do about this so-called messianic troublemaker named Jesus. And we have to understand the anger of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the Jewish leaders, are not limited only to Passion Week. That their opposition to Jesus actually begins from the onset of his very ministry. You find this that they're actually plotting to kill Jesus way back at the beginning, like in Mark 3:6, for example. And the reason for that is because Jesus challenged their authority. He challenged their teaching. And by the time that Jesus comes to Jerusalem for the final time here, the Jewish leaders had been opposing him for more than 2 years. And so they believed as long as there was blasphemy in the land, the true Messiah could not come. And here Jesus is. Jesus of Nazareth. He's walking around Jerusalem and other parts of the countryside, and he is declaring himself not just to be the Messiah, but also to be the very Son of God. So with each step of his life and ministry, things are intensifying, and as they get to Passover here, and as they get to Wednesday of Holy Week, they come to this belief: if Jesus was not killed, then there would be a riot that would take place amongst the Jewish people, and the Roman government would step in and destroy them, destroy the nation. They would bring the hammer down. So listen to what Matthew says here in Matthew 26, beginning in verse 1. When Jesus had finished say all these sayings, he said to his disciples, "You know that after 2 days the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man will be delivered up to be crucified." Now, obviously, he's speaking here on Wednesday, he's talking about what we call Good Friday. He's talking about the cross. Verse 3, "Then the chief priests and the elders of the people gathered in the palace of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas, and plotted together in order to arrest Jesus by stealth and kill him." Verse 5, "But they said, not during the feast, lest there be an uproar among the people." So in other words, as Jesus is teaching, his own death is coming soon. He's going to be arrested. He's going to be crucified. The religious leaders are gathered together. They're meeting in the palace of the high priest. Caiaphas is orchestrating this whole deal. They're plotting together. How can we arrest Jesus by stealth? And that's important here, because that's what's going to set up. That's what's going to set up tomorrow and Friday, is that they've got to find a way to attack from within. And then verse 14. "Then one of the 12, whose name was Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, 'What will you give me if I deliver him over to you?' And they paid him 30 pieces of silver," by the way, which is a fulfillment of an Old Testament prophecy. "And from that moment, he, Judas, sought an opportunity to betray Jesus." So there you have it. On Wednesday of Holy Week, the religious leaders are conspiring a way to get their man, to get Jesus. They find their man, the inside man, Judas. And in the mind of the Jewish religious leaders are made up. They have decided to condemn Jesus to death for his claims about being the Son of God, the Savior of the world, for challenging their authority, for challenging their teachings, for saying all of these things, for forgiving sins, which they called him blasphemous for. They are plotting his downfall, and they have already rendered the verdict. He's going to be guilty. And tomorrow, Thursday of Holy Week, known as Maundy Thursday, the beginning of the life of Jesus draws extremely near. And for the rest of the week, for the next few days, it's going to get far more serious and far more weighty, maybe than we realize. Thankfully, Jesus knows this is happening, and he knows what's going to happen next. And Jesus is prepared to stay the course all the way to the cross. So on Wednesday, the plan is hatched, and they find the traitor, Judas. And tomorrow, it's going to continue to intensify as we look at Thursday of Holy Week together tomorrow evening. So thank you for joining me this evening. I pray that your week is going well and your heart is being prepared as we look forward to our Good Friday service at 7 o'clock here at Freedom Fellowship, and as we look forward to our Easter Sunday morning service on Sunday at 10:30. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you and God bless.